Welcome to Judicial Dollars and Cents, brought to you by Anders Virtual CFO Services team from all across the United States. I'm John Scott, and in each episode, we'll shine a light on the financial side of the legal world, turning law firm numbers into impact-driven stories. From taxes and profitability to practice growth and leadership, we sit down with law firm innovators who are shaping the future of the profession. Let's dive in, right here on Judicial Dollars and Cents. Hey, and welcome back to Judicial Dollars and Cents, where the business of law meets the practice of law. I'm John Scott with Anders Virtual CFO Services for law firms, and each week we sit down with successful attorneys, legal innovators, and business leaders to explore what it really takes to build a thriving firm. We go beyond the courtroom to discuss leadership, profitability, operations, marketing, technology, AI, and strategies that help firms grow, scale, and create lasting value. Whether you're a managing partner, an emerging firm leader, or someone passionate about the future of the legal profession, our goal is to provide practical insights that you can put to work immediately. Today, we are pleased to welcome Debra Whitson, founder and managing attorney of WhitsonLaw, PLLC. Debra has more than 25 years' experience in matrimonial and family law. Before building her firm, she served as a prosecutor and chief special victims prosecutor working on matters involving domestic violence, sexual assault, and elder abuse. She's a Cornell University graduate and earned her law degree magna cum laude from Pace University, finishing third in her class. Today, WhitsonLaw helps clients navigate divorce, custody, and other family transitions through litigation, mediation, and collaborative divorce. The firm describes its approach as holistic, addressing not only the legal issues involved in divorce, but also emotional and financial consequences for the family. Debra is also the founder of Mediate Online Solutions, which delivers virtual mediation, divorce coaching, and co-parenting support. Its model is designed to make family dispute resolution more accessible, convenient, and cost-conscious. Debra, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. So great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So I like to explore people's origin stories. So how did you go from I want to go to law school to I want to be a prosecutor to family law?
Well, it started actually when I was 14. At that point in my life, I was telling everybody that I was going to be an author. I love to read. I love to write creative stories. And then a tragic event struck close to my family and my small community in Poughkeepsie, New York, where I grew up. My brother's best friend, then 18, they had both recently graduated together from high school, was brutally murdered. And everyone in our community was shocked by this and upset. And we followed the criminal case closely. So that was my first eyes on the criminal justice system. And I saw what I thought was a broken system because somebody who had confessed to this crime with tons of evidence found in his home nearly walked free. And that was quite an education for a shocked 14-year-old who had, was sort of rebounding from this tragedy that was collectively impacting the community. So I decided I was going to switch and go to law school to be a prosecutor. And that's what I did.
Wow, that's a compelling story. And I would suggest to you that wanting to be a writer is not incongruent with being an attorney. I mean, you go to court, you go to negotiations, you're storytelling. So I think that background served you well.
Absolutely. I like to make sure that especially in court, if I'm convincing a jurist who's a stranger to my client and the family that they're going to make decisions about, that I humanize it and tell the story so that the judge is getting really in an impactful way that these are human lives that he or she is impacting. And in criminal law, there was lots of stories to tell. Those were very, very tragic often. But of course, you're right. Storytelling is how we communicate as humans since the beginning of language.
And some are better than others at it. Hopefully the family law judges are open to the tragedy that involves what you do. I mean, these are lives that are being ripped apart, and I can't imagine doing what you do and being a part of that every day and not absorbing some of that stress. But I think that your firm's holistic approach and the trauma-influenced work that you do can go to help them cope through that situation. I want to change gears a little bit and talk about AI. And AI, a few years ago, people were saying, not going to happen. And there were two camps of attorneys, some that said, never going to use it, going to ruin the profession. Now I think more and more people are open to embracing it and using it ethically. How, if at all, is your firm embracing and using AI? And give me a good use case if you are using it.
We are using it. We're using it in terms of legal production in a very cautious way. Obviously, any law firm has access to sensitive client information, personal information. As a matrimonial and family law attorney or firm, we get social security numbers, bank statements, credit card statements. So we are, locking that stuff down. We want to make sure that our client data is fully protected. So where we dipped our toe into it first was in marketing and social media. We tell our stories. We actually I use a lavalier when I'm working with AI, so I can just talk naturally. And I tell the story or the message that I would like to communicate. And then AI does some, polishing of that. So that's been a very efficient way to approach our marketing. We use it to refine our legal writing. So, I have a secure program that resides on my desktop within my word processor that can compare contracts very easily. So we can see what the last draft coming from the opposing counsel changed in real time. And it highlights for us potentially conflicting or problematic terms and things like that. So that's been a really helpful way to speed up and make more accurate our review of lengthy matrimonial contracts, which of course we're mired down in all the time. And that's, if there's a marital contract, it's a good thing because they're resolving their case. Where else are we using it? Internally for financial controls and management. So I have a CEO dashboard. I have some really good financial reporting, and we're using all of the tools that like Claude and adding into our Excel to be faster and more efficient at refining our financial reports and business forecasts and things like that. So we're not doing it for legal research. That's no bueno. And we think that that's unreliable. And we're not putting client data out there. We're not substituting our attorney's judgment for good legal strategy by asking AI, what would AI do? We know a lot of our clients are dabbling in it, and they come to us with hand drafted. So they say proposed prenuptials or agreements. And, some of that is a decent start, but I would caution your audience, if there are people out there thinking I'm going to DIY it and do my own separation agreement or prenup or postnup using AI, I would say at this point, have attorney eyes on it. It's a good place to start, and it might streamline the work your attorney has to do to refine. But there are nuances, especially in New York. I can't speak to other states, but nuances in how you have to draft those things that could get rejected by a judge if you're submitting it for an uncontested divorce filing, or may have some pitfalls that you think you have a good prenup and it survives 20 years of marriage, and then you're going to rely on it. And 20 years later, you realize that that's not a legally binding term in your document. So I would, definitely have attorney eyes on it. And I'm not in this just to make money off people, but if people bring a good draft, I'm happy to review it, make sure it's going to work and serve them well for the long haul.
I love those use cases. And a few things you said that I really resonate with me is protecting that information and creating a geofence that keeps that personal information within the walls of your network. And then people are going to use AI to find professional services. And so tailoring your marketing outreach efforts to that, so that instead of them trying to figure out how to do their own prenup, they're trying to find the best family law attorney in their area. That would be your firm. And then thirdly, you mentioned that you have a CEO and you have this dashboard, right? And that dashboard helps you manage the firm. So what are the metrics that you pay attention to most in your firm?
So me as the, I guess, chief visionary officer, and at this point in time, I have a fractional CEO, so I'm also doing that role. I'm looking at a high level. So how is our marketing and sales going in real time? So that dashboard is updating every day. So I can see leads, which leads were, how many were qualified, how many consultations scheduled, how many consultations held, how many new clients engaged. So I can see that in real time. That's a good one, one page is actually in graphs for me, so I can see how we're doing toward our goal for the month. On the financial health of how much business is coming in, how is our marketing spend going, and are we getting a good return on investment? I have an owner's version of a weekly cash flow report. So my internal firm controller and my fractional CFO have much more detailed reporting. But for me and my busy day, I can look at my cash flow report and see, again, whether there are problem areas or things I need to be concerned about, or where bumps are arising and things like that. What else am I looking at? I mean, I get a lot of monthly reports, but that daily dashboard those are the key metrics that I'm looking at there. That's telling me in real time, do we need to course correct on our marketing? Is our sales slipping? And if so, why? How is the cash and financial health of the organization looking in real time?
I applaud you at paying attention to data in real time, because that course correction is so important. You can't ignore, and then say, oh, what happened? It's too late to do anything. You don't have enough runway to fix it. And I want to get back to something you said about consultations, qualified leads, and conversion. What's a good conversion rate for qualified leads at your firm?
A good conversion rate, and we hit it quite often, is around 70%. A lot of our business comes from reputational referrals, but we do, market it to a broad audience. So we can tell that those sources from professional referrals or prior client referrals, we have a really high conversion rate. We never want to go below 50.
Okay, and I think that's a great aspiration, and what you're hitting is exceeding what I see in a lot of family law firms. I mean, the low end is 40%, and the goal is normally 50, but 70% is phenomenal.
Yeah, I can't tell you that we haven't dipped below 50. And there are seasonal trends to matrimonial and family law. So the new year, new you, post-holiday thing, there's a boost. People say, I'm going to ride out the holidays, even though I've decided in my head I need to get out of this marriage or out of this relationship. So January, February is a boost. The holidays are a little slower, except for parenting skirmishes over how the holiday schedule is going to work in real time. There's a lot of last minute running to the court to get court orders that somebody can't override the holiday schedule, because you just can't do that unless there's agreement. So there's ups and downs. So in any month we may have more than 70% conversion rate or close rate, and in other months it might dip to 35, and then we're like, okay, we got to pay attention. Or is that a seasonal expectation?
Do you isolate the consultations with just a couple of attorneys?
We actually use a model where most of our consultations, or initial case assessments, we call them, are done by a non-attorney salesperson. So the non-attorney salesperson is, if they get to the non-attorney salesperson, we know it's the right type of matter in the right geography that we serve, right? So we know that they have a family law related matter and they're not in another state or in a far part of New York State, a faraway part that we don't cover. Mediation we can cover anywhere, so that's a different animal, so to speak. But the non-attorney salesperson is getting a little bit more information on the situation, making sure that we have enough information to know if this is the type of case that we really want, and have the internal expertise to handle, and just talking to the client about how our approach to family law matters is different than other firms, and setting ourselves apart. After the initial consultation, if they hire the firm, they'll then get an initial intake and strategy session with their entire team. So the team at WhitsonLaw is a principal attorney assigned to their matter, a principal paraprofessional, so paralegal or law clerk, and our dedicated client concierge who is a person who's a certified divorce specialist with knowledge and training on how to support people through a divorce or family transition, but they're not a lawyer. And so they're the hub of the team. They are not a billable hour person. They're a free service to the client. They'll connect the client with our internal divorce coaching consultant. They'll connect that client with a parenting support specialist if there's minor children involved or parenting issues. And they're the sort of air traffic controller of the work being done by the entire team. And the client, him or herself, is an important part of that team. So there are things we need from our clients in order to effectively represent them. And in a divorce, that might mean a whole lot of financial records. And so the client concierge is coordinating that with the client, again, to keep the cost down so that the paralegal's not spending time following up on why we don't have your tax returns and your retirement statements and your bank statements. So that's our team approach. Some people have more complex matters, and that really warrants sitting down with an attorney at the initial consultation to make sure that we understand the nuances of their situation and they feel comfortable with us. So in more complex cases, we'll have an attorney consultation, and there's me and my partner and one other attorney who principally does those legal consultations.
I'm sure the clients really appreciate the concierge service because they can get their questions answered much quicker. They can get communication. Attorneys and paralegals are busy, and that person can be that communication that's lacking in a lot of firms.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that a non-attorney or non-legal professional can handle. I mean, there's a lot of practical questions that clients have, especially if this is their first entree into the legal system. For many people, other than maybe having a real estate attorney on a house purchase, they've never engaged an attorney and they don't know what that's like. So there's a lot of uncertainty and the concierge can sort of answer those questions about what to expect, how to dress for court, where to meet at the courthouse, things like that free up the billable hour legal professionals to do the work that they have the training and skills and knowledge base to bring to bear. And those practical matters are really handled well by the concierge.
How often does it come up that you really have to tell someone how to dress appropriately for court?
We proactively will sort of just make that practice. So we don't have oops, we didn't say it and the client showed up in a manner of dress that we would not have expected. So sometimes even your first impression when you're sitting with the client or you're seeing the client on video consultations and meetings, you think, okay, they're going to come to court like that is fine. And then they show up in some other manner and you're like, oh, shoot, wish we had said that explicitly. So we just say it. And the concierge will say it like, maybe you don't need to hear this, but here's what we recommend. Don't bring your girlfriend or boyfriend. Don't bring the children. There's some people that just like, they bring the adult children to the divorce case. We're like, no, that's not okay. Please don't do that. It's not good.
Yeah.
So
I want to get to how do you charge for the different things that you do? Is it hourly, fixed fee? How do you charge for the services?
I would say that most are hourly services because they're, especially if they're court-based, there's just sort of unpredictable how much resources are going to be needed to bring to bear to do an excellent job representing that client. We do fixed fee mediations. So it's a fixed fee with a little bit of caveat. I am the one sort of evaluating the mediation clients and setting the fee. We have a range that people can count on, but I'm looking at how many issues. If there are no children, no child support, no alimony issues, then that's a lower fixed fee than all of those other things are there. Are there business valuation issues? Are there complex real estate assets or Bitcoin or things that are maybe a little bit more controversial or hard to evaluate? So I'll quote a fixed fee, and it includes a certain number of hours of mediation. So it might be 1 to 4 or 6, and the drafting work for whatever the purpose is: prenup, postnup, cohabitation agreement, marital separation settlement agreement, pet custody agreements, whatever it is. And then if they need more mediation hours or minutes, then there's a la carte choice. So if they didn't do it, I quoted 2 sessions and they need another mediation session, then it's another, $400 for another mediation session. But they pretty much know what they're expecting in terms of total cost start to having an agreement that they're happy to sign. So they love that, and I can do that at a lower price point because they're just generally.
So in your case,
mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So in your case, the revenue drivers for building a forecast, the driver build forecast, are matters that you have times a fixed fee, or, I mean, is that how you build out the forecast?
We actually treat the mediation piece. That's why I have Mediated Online Solutions as a separate company. So we treat them as, well, they are separate business entities legally. They're two different corporations, and they have two sets of books. They are symbiotic. So if the mediated company does the marital separation and settlement agreement, the law firm will then flat fee the uncontested divorce filing, because right, two different things. But the people who out of the gate aren't sure they can get into mediation or collaboration because the other party isn't interested in trying that, then we're going to do billable hour, because those things are much harder to predict on a flat fee basis. Could be one quarter.
So your mediation,
so yeah.
Your mediation business doesn't have geographic limitations. Am I correct in that?
That is correct. It does not.
So if a couple came to you from Colorado, they somehow landed on your website, said, hey, we want to get divorced. We think we can work this out. We need a mediator. You could do that. That's a great expansion of your footprint without having a physical location in another locality.
Correct. And there are certain standards, minimum training or education requirements for mediators in various states, but I meet them personally. I meet them and anyone I hire to mediate for the company. Meet them in all of the jurisdictions. So at this point, I've been barred in New York as an attorney for 32 years now. And I've been in a lot of advanced mediation training and high conflict mediations and complex co-parenting mediations. I've got co-parenting coaching training. So I bring a lot of hours of mediation experience, but also advanced trainings to the table. So we can do it anywhere. Where we stop then is we can't do the uncontested divorce filing in that jurisdiction. And so we just, we can work with them to connect them to an attorney in their state or jurisdiction that can do the uncontested divorce filing, but we'll do the drafting work after the mediation to give them their agreement draft.
So on those referrals, let's say this mythical couple in Colorado, you refer them to a Colorado attorney for the uncontested divorce. Mm-hmm. Can you get a fee back for that too? A fee split?
I haven't done that because I just think it's a nice thing to do. And then that usually works with reciprocity. So if they don't do mediation and they have a client who might be looking for mediation, they'll refer back. And that just seems to be okay. I mean, I don't have any one jurisdiction where I'm heavily making referrals to. Even in Colorado, I'm looking for a referral in a particular county. So there's not enough to sort of sit down and say, let's enter into a formal arrangement for referral fees. It's just mutuality, reciprocity at this point.
Do you see the mediation practice as having a bigger growth opportunity than your traditional law firm?
I do, and I just wish that people would embrace it. So I spent a lot, when I discovered this thing called collaborative divorce, which has been around a while, but I first got trained in it in 2013 and did mediation, my initial mediation training at the same time. I was just floored at how sensible and human focused and child focused at what these methodologies were. And I couldn't believe that anybody would go right to the courthouse. And so I went on a speaking tour. I went on the road. I took the show on the road. Me and my colleagues who were now collaboratively trained and mediation trained went on a speaking tour in upstate New York. And everybody was like, oh, that's interesting. But it never took hold. And it never really took hold because I think my legal colleagues across the aisle thought that it's true. You make more money per case on a heavily litigated case. There's no denying that. Like, I've had people who were crazy enough to run up a bill of $80,000 or $100,000 litigating the heck out of their divorce. I think that's foolish. I think there's better ways like mediation and collaboration. To collaborate, officially collaborate, you need two collaboratively trained attorneys who buy into that model. And I couldn't get anybody in my region to buy into it. And you can't collaborate by yourself. So, but I could mediate by myself. So that's where I really put my main focus lately. But I think collaborative is a brilliant model. It really is.
It certainly seems like it's more valuable to the client to be collaborative and not want to litigate every specific point and run up those big bills. Quite frankly, that's probably why most people don't want to go to the attorney. They want to try and work it out on their own, and that's not a good outcome either. So I applaud you for coming up with a collaborative approach in mediation, because it's more valuable to the client.
Yeah, it really is. If I could tell a quick story. So this is a true story, very recent to me. I went to a new to me medical provider and never met this person before, but I'm in the chair getting some, treatments from this person. And they ask what I do for a living. And I never really know how that's going to land, but a lot of people hate divorce attorneys because of the reputation that is so well earned by so many of the people in the field. So I, sheepishly say, I'm a divorce attorney and mediator, and she's like, oh, I've just started a divorce. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to have her tell me.
Here we go.
While I'm in my personal medical appointment, but there it goes. And so she tells me that she's hired this attorney that I know. And I know that attorney as a pit bull reputation attorney. So I'm like, okay. And she's really proud, and she's like very excited about this attorney. And she says, we're bringing a motion. We have a court in a couple of weeks. And I say, oh, does your husband have counsel? Yes. And she names him. And I say, okay, male version of the pit bull in my head. I'm not saying any of this. I'm smiling politely. But she's so confident and comfortable with this attorney that she's engaged. So who am I on a first meeting to draw down on that? So I say, well, good luck with that. You've got an experienced attorney. This attorney, the pit bull, has a lot of years of being a pit bull. So I let it go. I have a follow-up in a couple of weeks. I go back and I don't ask because I don't want to know, but I had a sense of how it went. She tells me, I don't ever want to speak to this attorney again. It was miserable. I spent $12,000. My husband spent $10,000. Horrible allegations going back and forth in the paperwork. Neither of us got the relief that we brought or sought in the motion. We spent more than $20,000, got nothing except misery. Like we threw horrible allegations at each other and got nothing to show for it. And she said, I don't know why they don't tell us, be level-headed and sit down and settle. And I said, at my law firm, that's exactly what we tell everybody who reaches out to us. Be level-headed, sit down and settle. And we have tools to help you do that effectively, like mediation, or just good old-fashioned call the other attorney and roll up sleeves and get the parties talking towards settlement. Like that. Why is that so radical? But the first move in this case, which was not a surprise to me, was run to court with a scandalous motion. And I said, you know what, I actually mediate. Here's my card. So this was just very recent. I don't know if she's going to call me or not, but it's a small community, and I wasn't going to badmouth either of the other attorneys that I have known for 30 years. So I just, in my head, I was like, good luck with that. And so that's the cautionary tale. But people think that's the way to go, right? They think that's the way you're supposed to go. You're supposed to fight.
Fight for everything. It's certainly, your approach though is less stressful and gets to a better outcome with less expense on both sides. So hopefully people will appreciate that and see the value in it. So if you were going to start your firm over again from day one, what's the one thing that you would change from the beginning to now?
Well, I founded WhitsonLaw in 2009. And as I said, I didn't know about collaboration and mediation really, or it wasn't really used at all or endorsed by the New York State court system. And it still isn't. So many states have a mandatory diversion to alternative dispute resolutions modalities. And then if you can't work it out, you get a judge at that point. New York is go right to the judge. So I was trained by a senior attorney in that approach, and I came upon the the realities that there were better ways around 2013. And like I said, I tried to get my colleagues to sort of buy into that and say, let's all do this. This would be really so much better for our professional satisfaction and our client outcomes. And that didn't really go very far. So I'm not giving up. I'm trying, and I am making inroads slowly over time. But from a business perspective, I ran my law firm as a professional practice and not a business for a really long time. So it was in the pandemic time where I realized I needed to do something different, because as basically a solo practitioner with a paralegal and a receptionist, this wasn't going to ever give me a path to retirement. So it was at that point that I got law firm management consulting services on a fractional basis. And I went from $200,000 of gross revenue in that pandemic year. That was much lower than any other year, but we're on track to do 4 million, and we have about 20 employees now. So that was a real entrepreneurial transition time for me, was the pandemic, causing me to rethink the model under which I was operating my practice as a professional.
I love that you made that transformation into viewing what you do, not as an art and a practice, but as a business. That yes, you're going to be great at your craft, but it needs to operate as a business, and you need to grow and scale so that you can retire, you can transition and possibly sell this practice to some of your other partners or to some other attorney. That's a great transformation, and it's not your fault. Your undergraduate degree wasn't in business or finance or accounting. So it was a evolution that you had to make, and the pandemic kind of forced us all to make changes. Yeah. Hey, before we wrap up, I want to ask some personal questions. I know that you love the outdoors, you love to cook, and you love to travel. Tell me about your last great vacation.
So my last great vacation was in January, and it culminated in Morocco, and we did 7 cities, including a Sahara glamping experience at the very end. My husband was with me, and Morocco was just dreamy and exotic, and the foods and the smells and the sights were, and the history, just absolutely amazing. We had some wonderful tour guides that we became very good friends with. And before that was preceded by a week in London, where my oldest stepson from my husband's first marriage and his wife and our granddaughter are living on a 3-year work assignment. So it was our first trip since they relocated there for that assignment. Not my first time in London, but my husband's. But it was just really nice seeing London they had at that point become kind of locals. They'd been there 6 months. So we had local guides, so to speak, and it was a different view of London for me, and enjoying it through their lens and my 16-year-old granddaughter's lens of just being so enamored with London. So that together, I had rainy London and sunny Morocco in one extended vacation. It was just fabulous.
It's great when you have boots on the ground that have the experience to take you to the non-touristy places, better food options that aren't, overpriced and not very good. And then I want to ask about glamping in Morocco. Was there ever any scary encounters with wildlife or did you always feel safe?
Oh gosh, the glamping experience was truly that. I mean, it might as well have been hotel rooms that were on platforms with the kind of very heavy duty tent structures around them. So it was, running water, showers, lovely, comfortable beds, and electricity and all that. So the only creatures that we encountered were camels, who were happy to let us take a ride and see the desert on camelback. But yeah, no crazy wildlife that was concerning. But the camping compound is, pretty well monitored. So we didn't see any deadly scorpions or other things like that.
That would be my biggest fear, but I will have to put that on the bucket list to go there.
I highly recommend.
Before we wrap up, Deborah, what's the best way for people to contact you or get a hold of your firm?
Great. Thank you for asking. So you can search my name, Debra Whitson, on all social platforms or on Google, and you'll come up with both of the businesses. But WhitsonLawFirm.com is the website for the law firm. MediatedOnlineSolutions.com is the website for the mediation company. We're everywhere in those business names and my personal name on almost every social platform that's out there.
That's great. Debra, thank you for joining us and sharing not only your approach to family law, but also the systems and leadership practices and business decisions behind your firm. And thank you all for listening to Judicial Dollars and Cents, where the business of law meets the practice of law. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Better yet, share this conversation with another law firm leader who could benefit from Debra's insights. Our mission is to help law firm owners build stronger businesses, serve their clients more effectively, and create firms that thrive for generations. Again, I'm John Scott with Anders Virtual CFO Services for Law Firms, and we'll see you next time on Judicial Dollars and Cents. Thanks for joining us on Judicial Dollars and Cents, presented by Anders Virtual CFO Services. If you found value in today's conversation, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. To learn more about how Anders helps law firms strengthen their financial foundations and drive growth, visit anderscpa.com. Until next time, keep making smart decisions that make perfect sense.